leaders tend to be urban, college-educated professionals, often with a postgraduate degree, and that makes them quite distinct from much of the rest of the country. Only 36% of Americans have a bachelor's degree, and only 13% have a master's or more. And yet, the top ranks everywhere are filled with this credentialed overclass. For many non-college educated people, especially those living in rural areas, there is a deep alienation from this new elite. They see the overclass as enacting policies that are presented as good for the whole country, but really mostly benefit people from the ruling class, whose lives have gotten better over the past few decades, while the rest are left behind. In this view, trade and immigration, for example, help college-educated professionals who work for multinational companies but hurt blue-collar workers. So when they hear from the experts about the inevitability of globalization and technological change and the need to accept it, they resist. It does not resonate with their lived experience. So let's look at the COVID-19 crisis through this prism. Imagine you're an American who works with his hands, a truck driver, a construction worker, an oil rig mechanic, and you've just lost your job because of the lockdowns, as have over 36 million people. You turn on the television and you hear medical experts, academics, technocrats, journalists explain that we must keep the economy closed. In other words, we must keep you unemployed because public health is important. Now, all these people making the case on TV have jobs, have maintained their standards of living, and in fact are now in greater demand. They feel they're doing important work. You, on the other hand, have lost your job. You feel a sense of worthlessness, and you are terrified about your family's day-to-day survival. Is it so hard to understand why people like this might be skeptical of the experts? The COVID-19 divide is a class divide. The Bureau of Labor Statistics released a report last year on the job flexibilities of U.S. employees. Of the top 25% of income earners, more than 60% can stay home and still do their jobs. Of the bottom 25% of income earners, fewer than 10% can work from home. In the early days of the crisis, only 13% of people in households making over $100,000 were laid off or furloughed, compared to 39% in households making less than $40,000. Dr. Anthony Fauci has said that he understands that maintaining these social distancing guidelines is inconvenient for many people. They're not just inconvenient, they are life-shattering. No one in America or elsewhere has all the knowledge to formulate the perfect formula to open up and move ahead. Even Dr. Fauci acknowledged that during congressional testimony this week, when he was asked whether schools should open. I don't have an easy answer to that. I just don't, he said. Situations regarding school will be very different in one region versus another. Regarding the economy, he noted,
I don't give advice about economic things. I don't give advice about anything other than public health.
So let's all recognize that we need to hear many voices as we make these difficult decisions, and that those making the decisions need to have empathy for all Americans, those whose lives are at risk, but also those whose lives have been turned upside down in other ways by this horrible disease. To read and comment on my Washington Post column, go to CNN.com.